There comes a moment in your life where heaven interrupts your routine. A moment when God is no longer speaking in whispers, but in warnings. Not to scare you, but to prepare you. This is that moment. And this message is not for everyone. It's for the chosen. It's for those who have felt the weight of a calling that doesn't make sense in the natural. You've been marked by heaven, but attacked by life. You've been set apart, but overlooked. Called, but crushed. And now you stand at a crossroads where your obedience will determine your outcome. God told me to tell you, if you ignore this word, don't blame him later. Because when God gives a warning, it's his mercy speaking. It's his love in action. The danger is not the storm. It's being unprepared for it. And some of you are about to step into a season where clarity will become your greatest weapon. You can't afford to keep making casual decisions when your destiny is on the line. This is not about feeling ready. It's about responding to the weight of heaven on your life. You are the chosen one. But being chosen doesn't mean favored only. It means responsible. And this message will demand a response from your soul. So don't sit on this word. Don't dismiss this moment. Heaven is speaking, and this is your divine interruption. Being chosen means being separated. Consecration is not optional. When God places a mantle on your life, he doesn't just bless your path, he sanctifies it. He sets it apart. Being chosen is not a title, it's a transformation. And the first sign that you've been marked by God is that he begins to remove access. Places you used to go no longer feel comfortable. Conversations you used to enjoy suddenly feel out of alignment. People you were once close to, the connection feels strained, not because you're better, but because your spirit has shifted. The hand of God will begin to separate you before he elevates you. Separation is not rejection, it's refinement. And it's through that refining process that God consecrates your life for something bigger than yourself. The problem is many of us want the fruit of being chosen without the fire that comes with it. We want the favor, but not the formation. But the chosen ones are not only called to shine, they are called to die. To die to their own timelines, preferences, and comfort zones. Because consecration is the cost of clarity. You cannot expect God to pour fresh oil on a vessel still filled with contamination. When God chooses someone, he begins to deal with them differently. You can't compare your journey to others. What they can get away with, you can't. What seems to work for them may not work for you because your calling carries a different weight. And God disciplines those he loves, not to punish you, but to protect what he placed in you. Some of the warfare you're experiencing isn't because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're carrying something holy. And the more sacred the assignment, the deeper the consecration must be. That's why consecration is not about performance. It's about positioning. It's about choosing to live in such a way that your life becomes an altar, a place where God can trust you with revelation, with people, with divine strategies. It's not about being perfect. It's about being available. Available for God to interrupt your plans. Available for God to cut off what's killing your spirit. Available to walk away from distractions and walk toward divine destiny. There will be seasons where your obedience will look like isolation, where your yes will cost you relationships, habits, and even your own comfort. But don't confuse separation with punishment. It is in the hidden place that God carves out the capacity you need for what's coming. You're not being left behind, you're being carried ahead in the spirit. And if you try to drag old patterns into a new assignment, you will sabotage what God is trying to birth through you. The oil flows where there is purity. The glory rests where there is surrender. And if you are truly chosen, consecration won't feel like loss. It will feel like alignment. Delayed obedience is disobedience when you're carrying kingdom assignments. When God gives an instruction, it is not a suggestion. It is a divine command rooted in purpose and timing. Many of us think we're obeying just because we intend to do what God said eventually. But delayed obedience is dangerous because it places the voice of God beneath the comfort of our own convenience. You cannot claim surrender and still negotiate divine timing. When God speaks, there is an urgency attached to that instruction because heaven moves in seasons, not just in desires. Every instruction from God is tied to a moment, a window, a kairos opportunity. When you hesitate, stall, or overthink, you give the enemy room to sow doubt. You give fear space to grow. You open the door to confusion, not because God is unclear, but because you pause where you were meant to move. And that pause becomes a portal the enemy uses to gain influence, not just over your time, but over your mind, your momentum, and your faith. The late obedience says, God, I trust you, but not right now. It's choosing your feelings over your faith. And for the chosen ones, that delay can become destructive. There are people connected to your assignment. There are lives on the other side of your yes. So when you hesitate, you're not just holding up your own breakthrough. You're affecting the divine flow around you. Heaven doesn't just assign you to blessings. It assigns you to impact. And impact requires timely obedience. The longer you delay, the more you start to justify disobedience. You begin to spiritualize procrastination. You say things like, I'm waiting on confirmation, when God has already made it clear. You call it discernment, but it's really discomfort in disguise. Because obedience rarely feels easy. Obedience will stretch you, strip you, and sometimes offend your logic. But it is that same obedience that will unlock realms of favor, clarity, and authority that delayed responses never reach. Remember Jonah? It wasn't that he said no forever. It was that he said no now. And that delay caused a storm, not just for him, but for everyone on his boat. That's the weight of delayed obedience. It doesn't just slow down your process, it disrupts the atmosphere around you. And for the chosen ones, disobedience is not just rebellion, it's resistance to divine momentum. God doesn't need your perfection. He needs your response. Immediate obedience releases supernatural assistance. When you move quickly, heaven backs you up boldly. The Red Sea didn't part before Moses obeyed. It parted as he moved. Miracles are often waiting on movement. Doors are waiting on decisions. Strategies are waiting on surrender. And the longer you delay, the more you risk stepping out of sync with the Spirit. The chosen cannot afford to treat divine instruction like an option. You are not just carrying dreams. You are carrying divine blueprints. And blueprints require precision, not procrastination. If God is speaking, it's because now is the moment. The only thing standing between you and divine breakthrough may be your delay. Heaven's warnings come wrapped in love, not fear. One of the greatest misconceptions in the body of Christ is believing that when God warns you, he's trying to punish you or make you feel afraid. But when God gives a warning, it is an act of mercy, not wrath. It is his way of pulling you out of danger before you even know you're in it. He sees what you don't see. He knows what lies ahead. And rather than let you walk blindly into destruction, he lovingly interrupts your plans with truth. Many times, the warnings from heaven don't come with thunder or fire. They come with conviction. They come as a check in your spirit, a restlessness in your sleep, a tightening in your discernment. You may not hear an audible voice, but you know when God is saying this is not the way. That inner nudge, that feeling you can't shake, it's not anxiety, it's a warning. And chosen ones must learn how to discern the difference. God's love is protective, and love that does not warn is not love, it's neglect. So when he speaks, even in correction, it is rooted in compassion. He is not trying to shame you, he is trying to save you. He is not trying to control you, he is trying to cover you. Because every time you ignore a divine warning, you expose yourself to consequences that were never designed for you. Warnings are God's way of saying, I have more for you than this. Don't settle. Don't compromise. Don't lean on your own understanding. The enemy loves to twist the nature of God's voice. He wants you to hear a warning and feel condemned. But conviction and condemnation are not the same. Conviction says, this isn't for you, come higher. Condemnation says, you failed, stay down. And when you're chosen, the enemy will work overtime to make God's voice sound harsh, distant, or unsafe. But when you are tuned to the Spirit, you'll begin to hear the tone of God. You'll realize that even his correction is saturated with invitation. He corrects because he cares. There's some blessings we forfeit, not because God said no, but because we didn't listen when he said wait, or walk away, or not yet. His warnings are not to withhold good things from you. They are to preserve you for the right things. Sometimes the very thing you're praying for would become a prison if God gave it to you out of season. That's why warnings are love in disguise. They are grace in motion. The chosen must develop a posture that doesn't just seek promises, but also respects protection. Can you obey even when you don't understand? Can you trust the tone of the shepherd even when he redirects you? God will never warn you without a way of escape. Every warning is paired with a pathway. But it takes humility to admit that he knows best, and courage to follow even when the road doesn't make sense. Heaven's warnings are not threats, they are lifelines. God doesn't hide his will from the chosen. He reveals it progressively through alignment. When you're walking in divine purpose, the will of God is not some mysterious puzzle you're meant to solve on your own. It's not locked away behind spiritual rituals or perfect performance. God is not playing hide and seek with your destiny. He reveals his will to those who are in position. And that position is called alignment. Alignment isn't about external perfection. It's about internal posture. It's when your heart, your decisions, your relationships, and your mindset begin to reflect heaven's values. As you align with the character of Christ, the voice of God becomes clearer. His will becomes more recognizable because God speaks most clearly to those who are surrendered. When you are yielded, you begin to attract clarity. And that clarity doesn't always come all at once. It comes in stages. We want the full blueprint, but God often gives the next step. We ask for the destination, but he gives a direction. Why? Because alignment requires trust, and trust is built in motion, not in maps. God doesn't show you the whole picture so that you won't idolize the plan more than the person guiding it. The chosen must walk by faith, not by foresight. And that faith is sharpened in the process of progressive revelation. When your spirit is aligned, you begin to recognize how God is leading you, even in silence. You realize that open doors aren't always confirmation, and closed doors aren't always punishment. You start measuring direction, not by comfort, but by conviction. God's will isn't always the easiest path, but it is always the most purposeful. And alignment sharpens your discernment to distinguish between what's good and what's God. Progressive revelation means God will test how you handle today before he releases tomorrow. He'll speak through scripture, through divine encounters, through people, and through promptings. But he won't pour new wine into old wineskins. So if you're still clinging to old habits, old thinking, or old cycles, you may miss what he's trying to unfold. Alignment demands adjustment. You cannot walk in divine rhythm while being tied to earthly distractions. And here's the truth. You don't find alignment by striving. You find it by surrendering. The more you let go of your will, the more his will becomes evident. And the reason some of us feel lost isn't because God is silent. It's because we're out of position. We're asking God to speak while ignoring the last thing he said. We're seeking clarity while avoiding correction. But the chosen don't just seek his hand, they seek his heart. And the more you pursue his heart, the more his will becomes a natural byproduct of your relationship. God's will flows to the aligned like water flows downhill. It's not forced, it's graced. And while the world may chase clarity through chaos, the chosen walk in peace because they know that divine direction is not discovered, it is discerned through alignment. The cost of ignoring divine instruction is greater than the cost of immediate surrender. When God speaks, it is never without purpose. His instruction is not random. It is rooted in eternity, and every word carries weight. For the chosen ones, there are moments where obedience will feel like a death to self. It will challenge your comfort, disrupt your plans, and stretch your faith. But what we often fail to realize is that the price of disobedience is far more costly than the pain of surrender. Disobedience doesn't always look like rebellion. It can look like delay, avoidance, excuses, or partial submission. But the danger in ignoring God's instruction is that it creates gaps. Gaps in protection, gaps in timing, gaps in provision. Divine instructions are sent to position you for what's coming. When you choose to dismiss that word, whether out of fear, pride, or fatigue, you step outside of divine covering. You remain saved, but you live misaligned. And misalignment always leads to unnecessary warfare. There are blessings that are timed. There are breakthroughs that are conditional. And when God tells you to move, to break ties, to shift focus, or to prepare, it's not just a moment of direction, it's a test of trust. You cannot walk in the fullness of your calling while ignoring the voice of the one who called you. The chosen don't have the luxury of casual obedience. What you ignore today could become your entanglement tomorrow. Think of Saul, one instruction to wait. But impatience led him to act in disobedience. And though he still reigned for a while, the favor had lifted. God's instruction was not just about the action, it was about his posture. The cost, his destiny was rerouted. Some of us are walking in extended battles because we're trying to maintain what God told us to let go of. And the longer you hold on, the more spiritual ground you lose. Immediate surrender doesn't mean easy surrender. It means faithful surrender. It means trusting that even when it costs you something now, it's preserving something greater later. God's instructions are not roadblocks. They're shortcuts to destiny. And while obedience may seem painful in the moment, it protects you from long-term loss. The enemy wants you to believe that ignoring God's voice has no real consequence, that you can pray your way around disobedience, that grace means there's no impact to your choices. But grace doesn't cancel principle. Yes, God is merciful, but he's also intentional. And when he gives you a directive, it is a divine invitation into a prepared place. Refusing that invitation may not strip your salvation, but it can strip your access to specific doors, moments, or relationships ordained for your purpose. To be chosen is to be trusted with instruction. And to be trusted means being accountable. The cost of surrender may be your comfort, your timeline, your plan. But the cost of disobedience is your impact, your clarity, your authority. For the chosen, the real danger is not sacrifice, it's silence that follows when you ignore the last word God gave you.